So first, to help you to understand what is a simple linear regression model or what is regression analysis, I want you to think about this case. So what is going to affect the size of the coffee shop? So let's imagine you have an idea. After you graduate, you want to run a coffee shop. Maybe you join the Starbucks franchise to run the coffee shop in Erie. So if that's the case, one of the questions you have to consider is how big your coffee shop going to look like. So if you look at a Starbucks, they're all Starbucks, but the one in the Milk Creek Mall and then the one outside Milk Creek Mall, the size are totally different. So the one in the Milk Creek Mall is much smaller than the one outside Milk Creek Mall. So what actually affects the size of the coffee shop? So if that's the question you're facing, and so the first of all you're going to ask yourself is, so what are the factors might affect the size of the coffee shop? So I give you 20 seconds to think about it, and so the question is, what actually going to affect the size of a coffee shop? I'm sure you came out a bunch of your reason or factor you think might affect the size of coffee shop. So let me just list a few. So when you think about the size of coffee shop, so you kind of try to predicting how large the coffee shop should be if you really plan to run the coffee shop. So that actually you should notice that there are a lot of factors going to affect that decision. So first of all, what is your budget? So if you have a larger budget, you can afford larger space. If you have smaller budget, you can only afford small space. And the second, the potential customers. So if you have a larger group of customers waiting for you, so you definitely need a larger space, right? And also the availability of the space, And so if you want to rent a place, it's not like, so first in the one in the Milk Creek Mall, they only have the small spaces. Even you want a bigger coffee shop, you won't be able to run there. So availability of the space. And a drive-through only or dine-in only. So if you only have the drive-through spot, why you need a big space? So if you do a dine-in, then the people have to find a place to sit. So you definitely have to think about to offer larger space. So you might need a bigger coffee shop. And also, how about the potential employee you want to hire? So how many employee you potentially might facing. That is another important factor might affect you to make a decision. How large of the coffee shop? So why I mention this example? The reason is because we want to learn regression model, and we're going to look at how those factors might be able to help me to predict the size of the coffee shop. So if you go back to think about your project, so if your group is studying what are going to affect student GPA, so you are thinking, wait a second, there are so many factors going to affect the student GPA. So if you will be able to build a model that connected the relationship between the GPA and other factors, you actually can use that model to predict the student's GPA. So for instance, you are looking at the factors including the age, the gender, the class standing, etc., and how those going to affect in the GPA. So once you know the student's age, if your model is good, if you know student GPA, age, gender, etc., you actually can predict how will be their GPA look like, how their GPA can look like. So the reason I use this example is try to help you to understand why we are learning the regression model, why the regression model is so emphasized in the business world. It is because the powerful prediction power, the powerful prediction power. So first of all, what we're going to look at is, so what are the steps we have to go through if you want to do the regression analysis?